Yes, Shuttleworth case. What, with Myers for the prosecution bound to trying it? It's been giving judgment for close on 2 hours already. No, not an earthly this evening, we're full up. Can give you an appointment tomorrow. No, couldn't possibly. I'm expecting Mayhew of Mayhew and Brunskill any minute now. So long.
Shall I make the tea, Miss Carter?
It's hardly time yet, Greta.
It is by my watch.
Then your watch is wrong.
I put it right by the radio.
Then the radio must be wrong.
Oh, not the radio, Miss Carter. That couldn't be wrong.
This watch was my father's. Never gains or losers. They don't make watches like that nowadays. Really, girl, you're typing. Always mistakes. You've left out a word.
Oh, well, just one word. Anyone might do that.
The word you have left out is the word not. The omission of it entirely alters the sense.
Oh, does it? That's rather funny when you come to think of it.
It is not in the least funny. Do it again. You may remember I told you last week about the celebrated case of Bryant and Horsfall, a case of a will and a trust fund, and owing entirely to a careless piece of copying by a clerk.
The wrong wife got the money. I remember.
A woman divorced 15 years previously, entirely contrary to the intentions of the testator, as his lordship himself admitted. But they couldn't do a thing about it, the wording had to stand.
I think that's rather funny too.
Council chambers are no place to be funny in. The law, Greta, is a serious business and should be treated accordingly.
You wouldn't think so to hear some of the jokes judges make.
That kind of joke is the prerogative of the bench.
And I'm always reading in the paper about laughter in court.
That's not caused by one of the judge's remarks. You'll find he'll soon threaten to have the court cleared.
Mean old thing. Do you know what I read the other day, Miss Carter? The law's an ass. I'm not being rude. It's a quotation.
A quotation of a facetious nature, not to be taken seriously. You may make the tea, Greta. Now.
Oh, thank you, Miss Carter.
Mr. Mayhew of Mayhew and Brunskill will be along shortly. Mr. Leonard Vole is also expected. They may come together or separately.
Leonard Vole! Why, that's the name.
Tea,
It was in the paper. Asked to communicate with the police as he might be able to give him useful information. It was only last... The tea, Miss Carter.
Honestly, these girls, sensational, inaccurate. Don't know what the temple's coming to.
Mr. Mayhew.
Sit down, Vole. Miss Carter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayhew. Sir Wilfrid should be along shortly, though you never can tell, Mr. Justice Banter. I'll go straight to the roping room and tell him you're here with Mr.
This is Mr. Leonard Vole. Thank you. I'm afraid our appointment was at rather short notice, but time is rather urgent. Oh, how's the lumbago?
I can only feel it when the wind is in the east. Thank you for remembering, Mr. Mayhew.
So, sit down, Mr. Vole.
Yes, thanks. I'd rather walk about. This sort of thing makes you feel a bit jumpy.
Yes, I suppose it probably would.
Would you care for a cup of tea, Mr. Mayhew? I've just made it.
Yes, thanks. Don't mind if
No, thank you.
Sorry. What I mean is, I can't believe it's me this is happening to. I keep thinking perhaps it's all a dream and I'll wake up presently.
Yes, I suppose one might feel quite like that.
I mean, don't you think it's all a bit silly?
Silly, Mr. Vole.
Yes, I mean, I've always been a friendly sort of chap. Get on with people and all that. I've never been the sort to do, well, anything violent. But I suppose it will be all right, won't it? I mean, you don't get convicted for things you haven't done in this country, do you?
Our English judicial system is, in my opinion, the finest in the world.
Of course, there was that one case of, what was his name? Adolf Beck. After he'd been in prison for years, they found out it was another chap called Smith. A free pardon then. That's the thing I don't understand, giving you a free pardon for something you haven't done.
It is the necessary legal term.
Well, it doesn't seem right to me.
The important thing is that Beck was set at liberty.
Yes, it was all right for him. If it had been murder now, it would have been too late. He would have been hanged.
Now, Mr. Ball, there really is no need to take a morbid point of view.
Sorry, sir, I'm just rather getting the window.
We'll try and keep calm. Sir Wilfred Robarts will be here presently, and I want you to tell your story to him exactly as you told it to me.
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, perhaps we can fill out some of the details. I understand at present you are out of a job.
Yes, I've got a few pounds put by. It's not much.
I'm not thinking of legal fees. It's just the pictures I'm trying to get clear, your background and circumstance. How long have you been unemployed?
About a couple of months.
And what were you doing before that?
For that, I worked in a motor servicing firm. Kind of mechanic, that's what I was.
How long did you work there?
About 3 months.
Were you discharged?
No, I quit. Had words with the foreman, proper old bastard. That is, he was a mean sort of chap, always picking on you.
And before that?
Before that, I worked in a petrol station, but things got a bit awkward, so I left.
Awkward? In what way?
Well, the boss's daughter. She was only a kid, but she, took a sort of fancy to me. And although there was nothing there that shouldn't have been between us, the boss got a bit fed up and said I ought to leave. He was quite nice about it, and he gave me a good chit. Before that, I was selling egg beaters on commission.
Indeed.
And a rotten job they were too. I've invented a better egg beater myself. You're thinking I'm a bit of a drifter, sir. It's true in a way, but it's not always been like that. Doing my army service unsettled me a bit. Well, that and being abroad. I was in Germany. It was fine there. That's where I met my wife. She's an actress. Since I got back to this country, I can't seem somehow to settle down. Don't know quite what it is I want to do. I mean, I like working on cars best and inventing new gadgets for them, and that's interesting.
Hello, John. Wilfred, Miss Carter told you I was in court? Ranto really surpassed himself. And this is Mr. Vole?
Mr. Leonard Vole.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do, Will? Won't you sit down? How's the family, John?
Oh, Molly's got in touch with this 24-hour flu.
Oh, too bad.
Yes, damn you. Oh, did you win your case, Wilfred?
Yes, I'm glad to say.
Always gives you satisfaction to beat Myers, doesn't it?
It always gives me satisfaction to beat anyone.
Yes, but especially Myers.
Well, especially Myers. He's an irritating gentleman. He always seems to bring out the worst.
That would appear to be mutual. You irritate him because you hardly ever let him finish a sentence.
Yes, and he irritates me with that mannerism of his. It's this. Drives me to distraction, and he will call me Robarts. Robarts! But he's a very able advocate. If you could only remember not to ask leading questions when he knows damn well he shouldn't. Anyway, let's get down to business.
Yes, I've brought Vole here because I'm anxious for you to hear his story exactly as he's told it to me. There is some urgency in the matter, I understand.
Oh?
My wife thinks I'm going to be arrested. She's much cleverer than I am, so she may be right.
Arrested for what?
Well, for murder.
It's the case of Miss Emily French. You've probably seen something about it in the paper. She was a maiden lady, living alone, but for a housekeeper, in a house in Hampstead. On the evening of October the 14th, at apparently 11 p.m., her housekeeper returned home to see that apparently the place had been broken into, her mistress had been coshed on the back of the head and killed. That is correct?
That's right. It's quite an ordinary sort of thing to happen nowadays. And then the other day, the paper said the police were anxious to interview a Mr. Leonard Vole, who had visited Miss French early on in the evening in question, as they thought he might be able to provide them some useful information. So, of course, I went along to the police station and they asked me a lot of questions.
Did they caution you?
I don't know, they said, would I like to make a statement, and they'd write it down and it might be used in court. Is that cautioning me?
Well, can't be helped now.
Anyway, it all sounded damn silly to me. I mean, I told them everything I could, and they were quite polite about it, and seemed very satisfied and all that. But when I got home and told Romaine about it, my wife that is, well, she got the window. She she seemed to think that they got hold of the idea that I might have done it. So I thought I'd better get hold of the solicitor, so I came along to see you. I thought you'd be able to tell me what to do about it.
You knew Miss French well?
Oh, yes. I mean, she'd been frightfully kind to me. Actually, it was a bit of a bore sometimes. She positively fussed over me, but she meant it well, and when I read that she'd been killed, I was awfully upset, because, you see, I was really fond of her.
Tell Sir Wilfrid, just as you told me, how it was you came to make Miss French's acquaintance.
Well, it was one day in Oxford Street. I saw an old lady crossing the road carrying a lot of parcels. When in the middle of the street, she dropped them, tried to get hold of them again, and found a bus was almost on top of her. Only just managed to get to the curb safely. Well, I recovered her parcels from the street, wiped the mud off them as best I could, tied one up that had burst open with string, and, well, generally, soothed the old dear down, and you know the sort of thing.
She was grateful.
Oh, yes, very grateful. Thanked me a lot and all that. Anyone would think I'd saved her life instead of her parcels.
There was actually no question of your having saved her life.
Oh, no, nothing heroic. I never expected to see her again. No thanks, I never do. But then by an extraordinary coincidence, 2 days later I happened to be sitting behind her in the theatre. She turned round and recognised me, and we began to talk, and in the end she asked me to come and see her.
And you went?
Yes. I mean, she asked me to name a day specifically. It seemed rather churlish to refuse, so I said I'd go along on the following Saturday.
And you went to her house at
Hampstead.
Yes.
What did you know about her when you first went to the house?
Well, nothing really, but what she told me, that she lived alone and she hadn't very many friends, something of the kind.
She lived with only a housekeeper?
Yes. She had 8 cats there. 8 of them. I mean, the house was beautifully furnished and all that, but it smelt a bit of cat.
Have you any reason to believe she was well off?
Well, she spoke as though she was.
And you yourself?
Oh, I'm practically stony broke and have been for a long time.
Unfortunate.
Yes, it is rather. Oh, you mean they'll say I was after her for her money?
Well, I shouldn't put it quite like that myself, but yes, in essence, that is possibly what people might say.
It isn't really true, you know. As a matter of fact, I felt sorry for her. I thought she was lonely. Brought up by an old aunt, my Aunt Betsy, and I like old ladies.
You say old ladies. Do you know what age Miss French was?
Well, I didn't, but I read it in the paper after she was killed. She was 56.
56? You consider that old, Mr. Bow? I doubt very much whether Miss Emily French considered herself old.
Well, you can't call it a chicken, can you?
No. Let's get on. You went to see Miss French fairly frequently?
Yes, I should say once, twice a week, perhaps.
Take your wife with you?
No, I didn't.
Then why didn't you?
I don't think it would have gone down very well if I had.
I mean, with your wife or with Miss French?
Well, with Miss French,
Go on, go on.
well, she got rather fond of me.
Ah, you mean she fell in love with you?
No, Lord, no, nothing like that. Just sort of pampered me and spoiled me, that sort of thing.
You see, Mr. Vole, I have no doubt that part of the police case against you, if there is a police case against you, which as yet we have no definite reason to suppose, will be why did you, young, good-looking, married, devote so much more time to an elderly lady with whom you could have had very little in common?
Yes, I know they'll say I was after her for money, and well, in a way, perhaps that's true. But only in a way.
Well, at least you're frank, Mr. Vole. Can you explain a little more clearly?
Well, she made no secret of the fact she was rolling in money. Romaine and I, that's my wife, were pretty hard up. I'll admit, I did think if we were really in a tight spot, she'd, well, lend me some money. I'm being honest about it.
Did you ask her for a loan?
No, I mean, things weren't desperate. Of course, I can see it. It looked rather bad for me.
What sums of money did you obtain at any time from Miss French?
None at all.
Tell me something about the housekeeper.
Janet Mackenzie. regular old tyrant, Janet was. Fairly bulled Miss French. I mean, looked after her very well and all that, but poor old dear couldn't call a soul her own when Janet was around. Janet didn't like me at all.
Why didn't she like you?
Jealous, I expect. She didn't like me helping Miss French with her business affairs.
Oh. So you helped Miss French with her business affairs?
Yes, she was worried about some of her investments and filling out forms and things like that. Yes, I helped her a lot.
Now, Mr. Vernon, I'm going to ask you a very serious question, and it is one which is vital. I am given a truthful answer. You were in low water financially. You had the handling of this lady's affairs. Now, did you, at any time, convert to your own use any of the securities that you handled? Now, just a minute, Mr. Vole, before you answer. Because you see, there are two possible points of view. Either you must make a feature of your honesty and probity, or if you swindled this woman in any way, then we must take the line that you had no motive for murder, since you already had a very profitable source of income. You can see there are advantages in either point of view, but what I want from you is the truth. Take your time, if you like, before you answer.
I assure you, Sir Wilfrid, that I played it dead straight, and you won't find anything to the contrary. Dead straight.
Thank you, Mr. Vernon. You relieve my mind very much. I pay you the compliment of believing you are far too intelligent to lie over such a vital matter. Now, we come to the evening of October
The 14th.
It's the 14th. Did Miss French I should go and see her that?
No, she didn't, as a matter of fact. But I'd come across a new kind of gadget, and I thought it would please her, so I slipped up there that evening. Got there about 7:45. It was Janet Mackenzie's night out, and I knew she'd be alone, and I thought she might be rather lonely.
Janet Mackenzie's night out, and you knew that fact?
Yes, Janet always went out on a Friday.
It's not quite so good.
Why not? It seems perfectly natural I should choose that evening to go and see her.
Please go on.
Well, as I say, I got there about 7:45. Miss French had finished her supper, but we had a cup of coffee together and we played a game of double demon. Then at 9 o'clock I said goodnight and I went home.
You told me the housekeeper said she came home that evening earlier than usual.
Yes, the police said she came back for something she'd forgotten, and she heard, or she said she heard, somebody talking with Miss French. Well, whomever it wasn't me.
You prove that, Mr. Vole?
Well, yes, of course I can prove it. I was at home again with my wife by then. I mean, that's what the police kept asking me, where I was at 9:30. Well, I mean, on some days one wouldn't know where one was. But as a matter of fact, I can remember quite clearly I'd gone straight home to Remain and we hadn't gone out again.
You live in a flat?
Yes, we've got a tiny masonette above a shop behind Euston Station.
Did anyone see you returning to the flat?
Well, I don't suppose so. Why would they?
Might be an advantage if they had.
But surely you don't think. I mean, if Miss French was really killed at 9:30, then my wife's evidence is all I need, isn't it?
And your wife will definitely say you were home that time.
Well, of course you will.
You are very fond of your wife, and your wife is fond of you.
Remain is absolutely devoted to me. She's the most devoted wife that any man could have.
I see. You are happily married.
Couldn't be happier. Remain's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I should like you to know her, Mr. Mayor.
Come in.
The evening paper, Sir Wilfrid?
Well, thank you, Greta.
Would you like a cup of tea, sir?
No, thank you, Greta. Oh, would you like a cupful?
No, thank you, sir.
No, thank you. Greta?
I think it would be advantageous for us to have a meeting with your wife.
You mean have a regular round table conference?
I wonder, Mr. Vole, if you're taking this business seriously enough.
No, I am. Really, I am. But well, it all just seems so much like a bad dream. Like it shouldn't be happening to me. Murder is something you read about in books or newspapers, but it's not something you think could ever happen to you or affect you in any way. I suppose that's why I keep trying to make a joke out of it, but it isn't a joke, really.
No, Mr. Vole, it is not a joke.
I suppose it will be all right, won't it? Because, I mean, if they think Miss French was killed at 9:30 and I was at home with Romaine...
How did you go home? By bus or underground?
I walked. Took me about 25 minutes, but it was a fine night, a bit windy.
Did you see anyone you might have recognised on the way there?
No, but does it matter? I mean, Romaine...
The evidence of a devoted wife, unsupported by any other evidence, may not be completely convincing, Mr. Vole.
You mean they think Romaine would tell a lie on my account?
It has been known, Mr. Vole.
And I'm sure she would too. Only in this case, it wouldn't be a lie. I mean, it really is so. You do believe me, don't you?
Oh, I believe you. But it won't be me you'll have to convince. You are aware, are you not? Miss French left a will, leaving you all her money.
Left all the money to me. You're joking.
I'm not joking. It's in tonight's evening paper.
Well, I can hardly believe it.
Do you know nothing about it?
Absolutely nothing. She never said a word.
You're quite sure, Mr. Vole?
Absolutely sure. I'm very grateful to her, but under the circumstances, I rather wish she hadn't. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate as things are, isn't it, sir?
It certainly supplies you with a very adequate motive, if you knew about it. Of course, you say you did not. Miss French never talked to you about making a will.
She said to Janet once, you're afraid I shall make my will again, but that was nothing to do with me. That was just a bit of a dust-up between them. Do you really think they're going to arrest me?
I think you must prepare yourself, Mr. Vole, for that eventuality.
You will do the best you can for me, won't you, sir?
You may rest assured I will do everything in my power to help. Place everything in my hands, don't worry.
And there's Romaine. I mean, she'll be awfully upset. It'll be terrible for her.
Don't worry, my boy, don't worry.
Then there's the money side of things. I mean, that worries me. I've got a few pounds. It's not much.
I think we should be able to put up adequate defence. The court provides for these cases, you know.
I can't believe it. I can't believe that I, Leonard Vole, will be standing in a dock saying not guilty. People staring at me. I don't see why they don't think it was a burglary. I mean, apparently the window was forced and smashed and things were strewn all over the place. So the papers said,
The police must have some reason for not thinking it was a burglary.
Well, it seems to me that...
Yes, Miss Carter?
Excuse me, Sir Walford. 2 gentlemen here asking to see Mr. Vole.
Please?
Yes, sir.
That's all right, I'll go and talk.
Is this it?
I'm afraid it may be, my boy, but take heart, make no further statement, and leave the rest to us.
How do they know I'm here?
It seems probable they may have had a man watching you.
Then they really do suspect me.
I am so sorry to disturb you, sir.
Well, this is Mr. Vole.
Is your name Leonard Vole?
Yes.
Right. Well, my name is Detective Inspector Hearn. Hello. Now, I have here a warrant for your arrest on the charge of murdering Miss Emily French on October the 14th last. I'm afraid I must warn you, Mr. Vole, anything you say now can be taken down and used in evidence.
Okay. I'm ready.
Good afternoon, Inspector Hearn. My name is Mayhew. I am representing Mr. Vole.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayhew. Yes, all right. Well, we'll take him along and charge him now. Such lovely weather when you're having it at the moment. Quite a little frost last night, wasn't it? Yes, well. We'll be seeing you again later, sir, I expect. I do hope we haven't inconvenienced you, Sir Wilfred.
I'm never inconvenienced. Well, that young man is certainly in a much worse mess than he seems to think.
He certainly is. How does he strike you?
Extraordinarily naive. In some ways, quite shrewd. Intelligent, I should say, but he certainly doesn't realize the danger of his position.
Do you think he did it?
I have no idea. On the whole, I should say not. You agree?
I agree.
Well, he certainly seems to have made a favourable impression on both of us. I can't think why. I never heard a weaker story. God knows what we're going to do with it. The only evidence seems to be his wife's. Who's going to believe a wife?
It has been known to happen.
Oh, she's a foreigner, too. 9 out of the 12 in a jury box believe a foreigner's lying anyway. She's bound to be emotional and upset. She won't understand a word the prosecuting counsel says to her. Still, we shall have to interview her. You'll see, she'll have hysterics all over my chambers.
Perhaps you prefer not to accept the brief?
Huh. Who says I won't accept it? Just because I point out that the boy has an absolute tomfool story to tell.
But a true one.
Well, yes, it must be true. It could be so idiotic if it weren't true. You put all these facts down in black and white, and the whole thing is utterly damning. And then you talk to the boy, and he blurts out all these damning facts. You start to realise the whole thing could have happened just as he said. Damn it all. I had the equivalent of an Aunt Betsy myself. I loved her dearly.
He's got a good personality, though. I think sympathetic.
Yes, that should go down well with the jury. But it cuts no ice with the judge. And he's the simple sort of fellow who might easily get rattled in the box. A lot depends on this girl. Come in. Yes, go ahead, isn't it?
Mrs. Leonard Vole is here.
Mrs. Vole.
Come here. You saw that young man just now. He's just been arrested for murder.
I know, isn't it exciting?
Do you think he did it?
Oh, no, sir. I'm sure he didn't.
Oh, why not?
He's far too nice.
Well, that makes 3 of us. Bring Mrs. Vole in. We're probably 3 credulous fools taken in by a young man with a pleasing personality.
Mrs. Vole.
My dear Mrs. Vole.
You are Mr. Mayhew.
This is Sir Wilfred Robarts, who's agreed to handle your husband's case.
How do you do, Sir Wilfred?
How do you do?
I have just come from your office, Mr. Mayhew. They told me you were here with my husband.
Quite.
Just as I arrived, I thought I saw Leonard getting into a car. There were 2 men with him.
Now, my dear Mrs. Vole, please, don't go upsetting yourself. Won't you sit down?
Thank you.
Now, there is no reason for alarm as yet. You must not give way.
Oh, no. I shall not give way.
Then I shall tell you that, as perhaps you already suspect, your husband has just been arrested.
For the murder of Miss Emily French.
I'm afraid so, yes. But please, don't be upset.
You keep saying that, Sir Wilfred. But I am not upset.
No, I see you have great fortitude.
You can call it that if you like.
The great thing is to remain calm, tackle all this sensibly.
That suits me very well. But you must not try to hide anything from me, Sir Wilfred. You must not try to spare me. I want to know everything. I want to know the worst.
Splendid. Splendid. That's the right way to tackle things. Now, my dear lady, we're not going to give way to alarm or despondency. We're going to look at all this in a sensible, straightforward manner. Now, your husband first became friends with Miss French about 6 weeks ago. You were aware of that friendship?
He told me he had rescued an old lady and her parcels one day in the middle of a crowded street. He told me she had asked him to go and see her.
It's all very natural, I think, and your husband did go and see her.
Yes,
And they became great friends.
evidently.
There was no question of your accompanying him on any occasion.
Leonard thought it better not.
He thought it better not, yes. Now, just between ourselves, why did he think it better not?
He thought Miss French would prefer it that way.
Yes, quite. Well, we can go into all that some other time. Your husband then became friends with Miss French. She was a lonely old lady with time on her hands. And she found your husband's companionship congenial.
Leonard can be very charming.
Yes, I'm sure he can. He felt no doubt it was a kindly action on his part to go and cheer up the old lady.
I dare say.
You yourself did not object in any way to your husband's friendship with this old lady.
I do not think I objected. No.
You have, of course, perfect trust in your husband, knowing him as well as you do.
Oh, yes. I know Leonard very well.
I can't tell you, Mrs. Vole, how much I admire your calm and your courage, knowing as I do how devoted you are to him.
So you know how devoted I am a foreigner. I do not always know your English terms. But there is a saying, is there not, about knowing something of your own knowledge. You do not know how devoted I am to Leonard of your own knowledge, do you, Sir Wilfred?
Oh, no. That is, of course, true, but your husband told me.
Leonard told you how devoted I was to him.
Indeed. He spoke of your devotion in the most moving terms.
Men, I often think, are very stupid.
I beg your pardon.
It does not matter. Please go on.
This Miss French was a woman of some considerable wealth. She had no near relations. And like many eccentric elderly ladies, she was fond of making wills. She made a number of wills in her lifetime. And shortly after meeting your husband, she made a fresh will. And after some small bequests, she left the whole of her fortune to your husband.
Yes.
You know that?
I read it in the paper this evening.
Yes, quite. But before reading it in the paper, you had no idea of the fact? Your husband had no idea of it?
Is that what he told you?
Yes. You don't suggest anything different.
Oh, no, I don't suggest anything.
There seems to be no doubt that Miss French looked upon your husband very much in the light of a son or a very favourite nephew.
You think Miss French looked upon Leonard as a son?
Yes, I think so. Definitely, I think so. I think that would be regarded as quite natural, quite normal under the circumstances.
What hypocrites you are in this country.
My dear Mrs.
Oh,
Full.
I shock you. I'm so sorry.
Of course, you have a continental way of looking at these things. But I can assure you, my dear Mrs. Full, that is not the line to take. It would be most unwise to suggest that Miss French had any feelings for Leonard Vaux other than those of a mother, or shall we say an aunt?
Oh, by all means. Let us say an aunt, if you think it best.
One must think of the effect on the jury of all these things, Mrs. Vaux.
Yes, I also wish to do that. I have been thinking of that a good deal.
It's quite. We must work together. Now, we come to the evening of October the 14th. That's just over a little over a week ago. You remember that evening?
I remember it very well.
Leonard Vaux went to call Miss French that evening. The housekeeper, Janet Mackenzie, was out. Mr. Vaux and Miss French played a game of double demon, and he finally took his leave of her at about 9 o'clock. He returned home on foot, he tells me, arriving at approximately 25 minutes past 9.
25 past 9.
Yes. At 9:30, the housekeeper returned to the house to fetch something she had forgotten, and in passing the sitting room door, she says she overheard Miss French's voice in conversation with a man. She assumed that that man was Leonard Vaux, and Inspector Hearn tells me it is this statement of hers which has led to your husband's arrest. But Mr. Vaux says he has an absolute alibi for that time, since he was at home with you at 9:30. That is so, is it not? He was with you at 9:30.
That is what Leonard says, that he was at home with me at 9:30.
Yes. Isn't it true?
But of course.
Possibly the police have already questioned you on that point.
Yes, they came to see me yesterday evening.
And you said?
I said, Leonard came in at 9:25 that night and did not go out again.
You said, oh,
That was right, was it not?
What do you mean by that, Mrs. Vaux?
That is what Leonard wants me to say, is it not?
But it's the truth. You told us just now.
I have to understand, to be sure. If I say, yes, it is so, Leonard was at home with me at 9:30. Will they acquit him? Will they let him go?
if you are both telling the truth, then yes, they will have to acquit him.
But when I said that to the police, I do not think that they believed me.
Makes you think they didn't believe you.
Perhaps I did not say it very well.
No, Mrs. Vaux, I don't understand your attitude in all this.
Oh, so you don't understand. Well, perhaps it is difficult.
Perhaps your husband's position is not quite clear to you.
I have already said that I wish to understand fully just how black the case against my husband is. I say to the police, Leonard was at home with me at 9:30, and they do not believe.
But perhaps there is someone who saw him leaving Miss French's house that night or in the street on his way home.
Oh, your husband cannot think of or remember anything helpful of that.
So it will be only his word and mine. And mine. Thank you. That is what I wanted to know.
Please, Mrs. Ford, don't go. There is a lot more to be discussed.
Not by me.
Why not, Mrs. Vogt?
I shall have to swear, shall I not, to speak the truth, all of the truth, and nothing but the truth.
What is the oath you take?
But suppose, when you ask me, when did Leonard Vole come in that night, I should say.
Well,
There are so many things I could say.
Mrs. Vogt, do you love your husband?
Leonard says I do.
Leonard Vole believes so.
But Leonard is not very clever.
You are aware, are you not? You cannot by law be called to give testimony damaging to your husband.
How very convenient.
And your husband
He's not my husband.
What?
Leonard Vole is not my husband. He went through a form of marriage with me in Berlin. He got me out of the Russian zone and brought me to this country. I did not tell him, but I had a husband living at the time.
He got you out of the Russian sector and safely to this country. You should be very grateful to him, are you?
One can get tired of gratitude.
Has Leonard Vole ever injured you in any way?
Leonard injured me. He worships the ground I walk on.
And you?
You wish to know too much.
I think we must be quite clear. Your statements so far have been somewhat ambiguous. What exactly happened on the evening of October the 14th?
Leonard came in at 9:25 last night and did not go out again. I have given him an alibi, have I not?
You have. Mrs. Vole,
Yes,
you are a very remarkable woman, Mrs. Vole.
and you are satisfied, I hope.
I'm damned if I'm satisfied. Aye, she's up to something, that woman. But what? I don't like it, John.
She certainly hasn't had hysterics all over the place.
Cool as a cucumber.
What's going to happen when we put her in the witness box?
God knows.
The prosecution would break her down in no time, especially if it were Myers.
Oh, if it's not the Attorney General, it probably will be.
So what's your plan of attack?
The usual. As many objections as possible. Keep interrupting.
What beats me is that Leonard is completely convinced of her devotion.
Don't put your trust in that. Any woman can fool a man if she wants to. And if he's in love with her,
He's in love with her, all right, and trusts her completely.
more fool he. Never trust a woman.
Not guilty.
Members of the jury, the prisoner stands indicted that he on the 14th day of October murdered Emily Jane French. To this indictment, he has pleaded not guilty, and it is your charge to say, having heard the evidence, whether he be guilty or not.
One moment, Mr. Miles.
Members of the jury, the proper time for me to sum up the evidence and instruct you as to the law is after you've heard all of the evidence. But because there has been a considerable amount of publicity about this case in the press, I would just like to say this to you now. By the oaths that you have all just taken, you swore to try this case on the evidence. This means the evidence that you will now hear and see. This does not mean that you are to consider also anything you may have heard or read before you took your oaths. You must shut out from your minds everything except what will take place in this court. You must not allow anything else to influence your minds in favor of or against the prisoner. I'm quite sure you will take your duty conscientiously in the way I've indicated. Yes, Mr. Myers.
May it please you, my lord.
Members of the jury, I appear in this case for the prosecution. My learned friends, Sir Wilfrid Robards and Mr. Mayhew, appear for the defence. This is a case of murder. The facts are simple and up to a certain point are not in dispute. You will hear how the prisoner, a young, you may think, not unattractive man, made the acquaintance of Miss Emily French, a woman of 56. How he was treated by her with kindness and even with affection. The nature of that affection you will have to decide for yourselves. Dr. Wyatt will tell you that, in her opinion, death occurred between 9:30 and 10 o'clock on the evening of the 14th of October last. You will hear the evidence of Janet Mackenzie, Miss French's faithful and devoted housekeeper. The 14th of October, it was a Friday, was Janet Mackenzie's night out, but on this occasion she happened to return for a few minutes at 9:25. She let herself in with a key, and upon going upstairs to her room, she passed the door of the sitting room. She will tell you that in the sitting room she heard the voices of Miss French and of the prisoner, Leonard Vaux.
That's not true.
Janet Mackenzie was surprised, since as far as she was aware, Miss French was not expecting Leonard Vaux to call that evening. However, she went out again, and when she returned finally at 11, she found Miss French murdered. The room in disorder, a window smashed and the curtains blowing wildly. Horror-stricken, she immediately rang up the police. I should tell you that Leonard Vaux was arrested on the 20th of October. It is the case for the prosecution that Miss Emily Jane French was murdered between 9:30 and 10 o'clock on the evening of the 14th of October by a blow from a cosh. And that blow was struck by the prisoner. I will now call Inspector Hearn.
Calling Inspector Hearn. I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Robert Hearn, Detective Inspector, Criminal Investigation Department, New Scotland Yard.
Yeah, Inspector. On the evening of the 14th of October last, were you on duty when you received an emergency call?
I was, sir.
What did you do?
With Sergeant Randall, I proceeded to 23 Ashburn Grove. I was admitted to the house, and I established that the occupant, whom I later ascertained to be Miss Emily French, was dead. She was lying on her face and had sustained severe injuries to the back of her head. An attempt had been made to force one of the windows with some blunt instrument that might have been a chisel. The window in question had been broken near the catch. There was glass strewn all around the floor, and I later also found fragments of glass on the ground outside the window.
Is there any particular significance in finding glass both inside and outside?
Oh, yes, sir. The glass outside was not consistent with the window having been forced from outside.
You mean that if the window had been forced from the inside, there had been an attempt made to make it look as if it had been done from the outside?
Well,
Objection! My learned friend is putting words into the witness's mouth. You really must observe the rules of evidence.
Inspector, you have been engaged on several cases of burglary and housebreaking.
yes, sir.
In your experience, when a window is forced from the outside, where is the glass?
On the inside.
In any other case, where the windows have been forced from the outside, have you found glass outside the window, some distance below on the ground?
No.
No. Will you go on?
A search was made, photographs were taken, the place was fingerprinted.
And what fingerprints did you discover?
Well, those of Miss Emily French herself, those of Miss Janet Mackenzie, and some, which later proved to be those of the prisoner, Leonard Vaux.
And no others?
No others.
Did you subsequently have an interview with prisoner Leonard Vole?
I did, sir, yes. Miss Janet Mackenzie was not able to give me his address, but as a result of a broadcast and a newspaper appeal, Mr. Leonard Vole came to see me.
And on the 20th of October, when arrested, what did the prisoner say?
He replied, "Okay, I'm ready."
Okay, I'm ready. Now, you say that the window had been forced from the outside. You say that the room had the appearance of a burglary having been committed. Is that right?
And that is just what the inspector did not say. If your lordship remembers, that was a suggestion made by my learned friend, quite improperly made, to which I objected.
Quite right, Sir Wilfrid, yes. At the same time, I'm not sure the inspector is not entitled to give evidence of any facts that may tend to prove the disorder in the room was not the work of a person who broke in from the outside for the purposes of the robbery.
My lord, if I may respectfully agree with what your lordship has said, the facts, yes, but not the mere expression of an opinion without even the facts upon which it is based.
Perhaps if I phrased my question in this way, my friend would be satisfied. Inspector, could you say from what you saw whether there had or had not been a bona fide breaking in from outside the house?
Oh, no! I must continue my objection. My learned friend is once again seeking to obtain an opinion from this witness.
Yes, Mr. Myers, I think you'll have to do a little better than that.
Inspector, did you find anything inconsistent with a breaking in from the outside?
Only the glass, sir.
Nothing else?
Nothing else.
We all seem to have drawn a little bit of a blank there.
Was Miss French wearing jewellery of any value?
Yes, she was, sir. She was wearing a diamond brooch and 2 diamond earrings, total value of about £900.
And these remained untouched?
Yes, sir.
Was in fact anything taken?
According to Miss Janet Mackenzie, nothing was missing.
In your experience, when anyone breaks into a house, do they leave without taking anything?
Well, not unless they're interrupted.
But in this case, it does not appear as if the burglar was interrupted.
No.
No. Do you produce a jacket, Inspector?
I do, sir.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
From where did you get it?
I found it at the prisoner's flat, sir, sometime after he'd been arrested. I later handed it to Mr. Clegg at the lab to test for possible bloodstains.
Lastly, Inspector, do you produce the will of Miss French?
Yes, I do, sir.
Dated October the 8th.
Yes, sir.
After certain bequests, the residue is left to the prisoner.
That's right, sir.
And what is the net value of that estate?
Well, it will be, as far as can be ascertained at present, approximately £85,000.
Now, you have said that the only fingerprints found in the room were those of Miss Emily French herself, the prisoner Leonard Vole, and Janet Mackenzie. Now, in your experience, when a burglar breaks in, does he normally leave fingerprints or does he wear gloves?
He wears gloves.
Invariably.
Almost invariably.
So the absence of any fingerprints in a case of robbery would hardly surprise you.
No, sir.
Now, these chisel marks on the window, were they on the inside or the outside of the casing?
On the outside, sir.
So isn't that consistent and only consistent with a breaking in from the outside?
No, he could have gone outside afterwards to have made those marks, sir, or he could have made them from the inside.
From the inside, Inspector? How could he possibly have done that?
Oh, well, there are 2 windows together there. Both are casements with their catches adjacent. It would have been perfectly simple for somebody inside the house to open one window, lean out, and force the catch to the other.
Tell me, Inspector, was any chisel found either near the premises or at the prisoner's flat?
Yes, sir, at the prisoner's flat.
Oh?
But it didn't fit the marks on the window.
It was a windy night, was it not? On October the 14th?
I really can't remember, sir.
Well, according to my learned friend, Janet Mackenzie said the curtains were blowing. Perhaps you noticed that fact yourself?
Yes, sir, they did blow about.
Indicating that it was a windy night. I suggest that if a burglar had forced the window from the outside and then swung the window back, some of the loose glass might easily have fallen outside the window having been blown back violently by the wind. That is possible, is it not?
Yes, I suppose so, sir.
Crimes of violence, as we are all unhappily aware, have been much on the increase of late. You would agree to that, would you?
Yes, well, it's been slightly above average.
Let us take the case that some young thugs have broken in, intending to attack Miss French and steal from her. It is quite possible that one of them had coshed her and then found that she was dead. They might have left in a panic without taking anything, or they might have even been looking for money and been afraid to touch anything in the nature of jewellery.
I submit that it is impossible for Inspector Hearn to guess at what went on in the minds of some entirely hypothetical young criminals who may not even exist.
The prisoner came forward of his own accord, gave his statement quite willingly.
That is so.
Is it also the case that at all times the prisoner has protested his innocence?
He has.
Inspector Hearn, would you kindly examine that knife? You have seen that knife before.
I may have.
This is the knife taken from the kitchen table of Leonard Ville's flat, and which was brought to your attention by the prisoner's wife on the occasion of your first interview with her.
My lord, may I save the time of the court by saying that we accept this knife as a knife being in possession of Leonard Ville and shown to the inspector by Mrs. Ville?
That is correct, Inspector?
Yes, sir.
It is what is known, I believe, as a French vegetable knife.
I believe so, sir.
Just test the edge of the knife with your finger. Carefully. You will agree that the cutting edge and the point of the knife are razor sharp.
Yes, sir.
So that if you were cutting, say, ham, carving it, and your hand slipped with that knife, it would be capable of inflicting a very nasty cut, and one which would bleed profusely.
How I object. That is a matter of opinion and medical opinion at that.
I withdraw the question. I will ask you instead, Inspector, if, when challenged as to some stains on the sleeve of his jacket, the prisoner drew your attention to a recently healed scar and said that it had been caused by a household knife while he was slicing ham.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And you were told the same thing by the prisoner's wife.
Oh, well, the first
A
time,
simple
yes,
yes or no, please. Did the prisoner's wife choose that knife and say that her husband had cut his wrist with it, carving ham?
Yes, she did.
What first drew your attention to the jacket?
The sleeve appeared to have been recently washed.
And you were told this story about the accident with the kitchen knife.
Yes, sir.
And your attention was drawn to a scar on the prisoner's wrist.
Yes, sir.
Now, granted that that scar was made by this particular knife, there was nothing to show whether it was an accident or done deliberately. Thank you, Inspector. Call Dr. Wyatt.
Calling Dr. Wyatt.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Dr. Wyatt.
Yes,
You are a police surgeon attached to the Hampstead Division.
yes.
Will you kindly tell the jury what you know regarding the death of Miss Emily French?
At 11 p.m. on October 14th, I saw the dead body of the woman who subsequently proved to be Miss French. By examination of the body, I was of the opinion that the death had resulted from a blow on the head, delivered from an object such as a cosh. Death would have been practically instantaneous. From the temperature of the body and other factors, I placed the time of death at not less than an hour previously, and not more than, say, an hour and a half. That is to say, between the hours of 9:30 and 10 p.m.
Had Miss French struggled with her adversary at all?
There was no evidence that she'd done so. I should say, on the contrary, that she'd been taken completely unprepared.
Now, Doctor, where exactly on the head had this blow been struck? There was only one blow, was there not?
Only one, on the left side, at the asterion.
I beg your pardon, where?
The asterion. The junction of the parietal, occipital, and temple bones.
Oh, yes. And in layman's language, where exactly is that?
Behind the left ear.
Would that indicate that the blow had been struck by a left-handed person?
It's difficult to say. The blow appeared to have been struck directly from behind, because the bruising ran perpendicularly. I should say it's impossible to say whether it was delivered by a right or a left-handed man.
But we don't know yet that it was a man, Dr. Wyatt. But will you agree that from the position of the blow, it is more than anything likely to have been delivered by a left-handed person.
That is possibly so, but I would prefer to say that it is uncertain.
At the moment the blow was struck, would blood have been likely to have got onto the hand or arm that struck the blow?
Oh, yes, certainly.
And only on that hand or arm?
Probably only on that hand or arm, but it's difficult to be dogmatic.
Quite so, Dr. Wyatt, quite so. Now tell me, would great strength have been needed to strike such a blow?
No, from the position of the wound, no great strength would have been needed.
So, it needn't necessarily have been a man that struck the blow. A woman could have done so equally well.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call Janet Mackenzie.
Calling Janet Mackenzie. Calling Janet Mackenzie.
Other hand, please. I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Janet Mackenzie.
Yes, that's my name.
You were companion housekeeper to the late Miss Emily French.
I was her housekeeper. I have no opinion of companions. Poor feckless bodies afraid to do a bit of honest domestic work.
Quite so, quite so. I meant only that you were held in affection and esteem by Miss French and were on friendly terms together, not quite those of mistress and servant.
Well, 20 years I've been with her and I've looked after her. She knew me and she trusted me, and many's the time I prevented her from doing a foolish action.
Miss Mackenzie, can I ask you to direct your remarks to the jury?
Now, what sort of a person was Miss French?
Well, she was a warm-hearted sort of body, too warm-hearted at times, I'm thinking. She was easily flattered, you see.
And when did you first see the prisoner, Leonard Vaux?
He came to the house I mined at the end of August.
How often did he come?
Well, to begin with, once a week, but later it was oftener. 2 or 3 times he'd come. He'd sit there, flattering her, noticing how young she looked, and saying about all the new clothes she was wearing.
Quite. Now, will you kindly tell the jury in your own words, Miss Mackenzie, what happened on the evening of the 14th of October?
It was a Friday night and my night out. I was going round to see some friends of mine in Glenister Road, which is not above 3 minutes' walk. I left the house at 7:30. I'd promised to take my friend the pattern of the knitted cardigan that she'd admired. But when I got there, I found I'd left it behind. So after supper, I said I'd slip back and get it, as it was no distance and a fine night. I got back to the house at 9:25. I let myself in with my key, I went upstairs, and as I passed the sitting room door, I could hear the prisoner in there talking with Miss French.
You were sure it was the prisoner you heard?
Yes, I know his voice well enough with him calling so often. An agreeable voice it was, I can't say it wasn't. Talking and laughing they were. But it was no business of mine, so I went upstairs, got the pattern, came back downstairs, let myself out, and went back to my friends.
Now, I want these times very exact. You say you re-entered the house at 9:25.
Yes, it was just after 9:20 that I left Glenister Road.
And how do you know that, Miss Mackenzie?
Well, by the clock on my friend's mantelpiece, and I checked it by my watch, and the times were the same.
You say it takes 3 or 4 minutes to walk to the house. So you entered at 9:25 and you were there...
I was there for less than 10 minutes. It did take me a few minutes to search for the patterns. I wasn't sure where I'd left it.
What did you do next?
I went back to my friend's on Glenister Road. Oh, she was delighted with the pattern, simply delighted. I stayed there until 11:20, then I said goodnight to them and I came home. It was then that I went into the sitting room to see if my mistress wanted anything before she went to bed.
And what did you see?
She was there on the floor, poor body. Her head beaten in and the drawers of the bureau out on the ground, and everything tossed hither and thither, and the broken vase on the floor and the curtains blowing in the wind.
What did you do?
I rang the police.
Did you really think that a burglary had occurred?
Really, my lord, I protest.
Yes, I'll not allow that question to be answered. It should not have been put to the witness.
Then let me ask you this. What did you do after you had telephoned the police?
Well, I searched the house.
What for?
An intruder.
Did you find one?
I did not. nor any sign of disturbance save that in the sitting room.
Now, how much did you know about the prisoner, Leonard Vole?
Well, I knew that he needed money.
Did he ask Miss French for money?
Oh, he was too clever for that.
Did he help Miss French with her business affairs, with her income tax returns, for instance?
Yes, not that there was any need of it.
Oh, what do you mean by not any need?
Well, Miss French had a good, clear head for business.
Were you aware of what arrangements Miss French had made for the disposal of her money in the event of her death?
Well, she made wills as the fancy took her. She was a very rich woman with lots of money to leave and no near relatives. It must go where it can do most good, she would say. Once it was to an orphanage she left it, and once to an old people's home, and another time to a dispensary for cats and dogs. But it all came to the same in the end. She would quarrel with the people, come home, tear up the will, and make a new one.
Do you know when she last made the will?
She made it on October the 8th. I heard her talking to Mr. Stokes, the lawyer, to say he was come tomorrow as she was making the new will. He was there at the time, the prisoner I mean, sort of protesting, saying no, no. And my lady said, but I want to, my dear boy, I want to. Remember that time I nearly got run over by a bus? It could happen at any time.
Do you know when your mistress made a will previous to that one?
In the spring it was.
Now, were you aware that Leonard Vole was a married man?
No, indeed I was not. And neither was my mistress.
Objection! What Miss French knew or did not know is pure conjecture on Janet Mackenzie's part.
Then let us put it this way. You formed the opinion that Miss French thought Leonard Vole a single man.
Yes.
Did you have any evidence to support that opinion?
Well, there were the books she ordered from the library. There was the life of Baronet de Burdett Coombs, and the one about Disraeli and his wife, now both about women who'd married men years younger than themselves. Well, I knew what she was thinking.
I'm afraid I can't admit that.
Why?
Members of the jury, it is possible for a woman to read the life of Disraeli without contemplating marriage to a man younger than herself.
Did Leonard Vole ever mention a wife?
Never.
Thank you.
I think we all appreciate how very devoted to your mistress you were.
Yes, I was.
Had great influence over her.
Yes, maybe.
Now, in the last will Miss French made, that is to say the one she made last spring, she left you her entire fortune. You were aware of that fact?
She told me so. All crooks, these charities, she said, with expenses here and expenses there, and the money not going to the object you gave it for. I have left it to you, Janet, and you must do what you think is right and good with it.
That was an expression of great trust on her part. Yet, I understand in this latest will, she has left you with merely an annuity. The principal benefactor is the prisoner, Leonard Vole.
It'll be a wicked injustice if he ever touches a penny of that money.
Miss French, you say, had not many friends or acquaintances. Now, why was that?
She didn't go out much.
So, when Miss French struck up this friendship with the prisoner, Leonard Vole, it made you very sore and angry, didn't it?
I didn't like seeing my dear mistress imposed upon.
And yet you have admitted that Mr. Vole did not impose upon her. Perhaps you mean you did not like to see anyone supplanting you as an influence over Miss French.
She leaned on him a great deal, far more than was safe, that I thought.
Far more than you personally liked.
Of course, I just said so, but it was of her good I was thinking.
So the prisoner had a great influence on Miss French, and she had a great affection for him.
Yes, that's what it had come to.
So that if the prisoner had ever asked her for any money, she would almost certainly have given him some.
I have not said that.
But he never received any money from her.
Well, that may not be for the want of trying.
Now, returning to the night of October the 14th, you say that when you passed the sitting room door, you heard Miss French and the prisoner talking together. Now, what did you hear them say?
Well, I didn't hear what they actually said.
You mean you heard only the voices, the murmur of voices?
They were laughing.
You had a man's voice and a woman's voice, and they were laughing. Is that right?
Yes.
I suggest that is exactly what you did hear. You heard a man's voice and a woman's voice, and they were laughing. You did not hear what they said. Now, what makes you say that the man's voice was Leonard Vole's?
Well, I know his voice well enough.
The door was closed, was it not?
Yes, the door was closed.
And the murmur of voices from behind behind a closed door, and yet you swear one of the voices was that of Leonard Vole. I suggest that is mere prejudice on your part.
I was there long enough to hear what I heard.
As I understand it, you passed that door on 2 occasions, once going to your room and once going out.
That is so.
You were no doubt in a hurry to get your pattern and return to your home.
I was in no particular hurry. I had the whole evening.
What I am suggesting is that on both occasions you walked quickly past that door.
As I say, I was there long enough to hear what I heard.
Oh, now come now, Miss Mackenzie. I'm sure you don't want to suggest to the jury that you were eavesdropping.
I was doing no such thing. I've got better things to do with my time.
Exactly. You are, of course, registered on the National Health Insurance.
That is so. 4 and 6pence I pay every week. It is an awful lot of money for a working woman to pay.
Yes, quite many people feel that. I think you recently applied for a national hearing apparatus.
6 months ago I applied for it and still not got it yet.
So your hearing is not very good, is that right? So when I say to you, Miss Mackenzie, that it is not possible for you to recognize the voice through a closed door, what do you answer? Can you tell me what I said?
Well, I can't hear anyone if they mumble.
In fact, you did not hear what I said, though you are only a few feet away from me in an open court, yet you say that through a closed door, with 2 people talking in an ordinary conversational tone, you definitely recognize the voice of Leonard Vole as you swept past that door on 2 occasions.
It was him, I tell you. It was him.
What you mean is you want it to be him. You have a preconceived notion.
Well, who else could it have been?
Exactly. Who else could it have been? That was the way your mind worked. Now tell me, Miss Mackenzie, was Miss French ever lonely? All by herself in the evening?
No, she wasn't lonely. She had her books from the library.
She listened to the wireless, perhaps?
Yes, she listened to the wireless.
She was fond of a talk on it, or of a good play, perhaps?
Yes, she liked a good play.
It's quite possible, isn't it, that when you returned that evening and walked past that door, what you actually heard was the wireless switched on, and a man's voice and a woman's voice, and laughter. There was a play called Lover's Leap on the wireless that night.
It was not the wireless.
Oh, why not?
The wireless was away, being repaired that week.
It must have upset you very much if you thought that Miss French really intended to marry the prisoner.
Well, naturally it would upset me. It was a daft thing to do.
Now, for one thing, if Miss French had married the prisoner, it's quite possible, isn't it, that he might have persuaded her to dismiss you?
She'd never have done that, not after all these years.
You don't know what anyone will do you? Not if they're strongly influenced by anyone.
Oh, he would have influenced her, oh yes. He would have tried his best to make her get rid of me.
I see. So you felt that the prisoner was a very real menace to your present way of life at the time?
Well, he would have changed everything.
Yes. Very upsetting. No wonder you feel so bitterly against the prisoner.
My learned friend has been at great pains to extract from you an admission of vindictiveness towards the prisoner.
Painless extraction. Quite painless.
Do you really think that Miss French might have married the prisoner?
Indeed I did. I just said so.
Indeed you had. In your view, had the prisoner such an influence over Miss French that he might have persuaded her to dismiss you?
I'd like to have seen him try. He'd have not succeeded.
Had the prisoner ever shown any dislike of you in any way?
No. He had his manners.
Just one more question, Miss Mackenzie. You say that you recognize Leonard Vole's voice through that closed door. Will you kindly tell the jury how you knew it was his?
Well, you know a person's voice, even if you can't hear exactly what it is they are saying.
Thank you, Miss Mackenzie.
Good morning.
Call Thomas Clay.
Calling Thomas Clay.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Thomas Clay.
Yes, sir.
You are an assistant in the forensic laboratory at New Scotland Yard.
I am.
Do you recognise that jacket?
Yes. It was given to me by Inspector Hearn. and tested by me for traces of blood.
And will you tell me your findings?
Yes, the coat sleeves had been washed, although not properly pressed afterwards. But by certain tests, I'm able to state that there are traces of blood on the cuffs.
And is this blood of a particular group or type?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is of the type O.
And were you also given a sample of blood to test?
Yes, I was given a sample labelled blood of Miss Emily French. The blood was of the same type, O.
Now you have said there were traces of blood on both cuffs.
Yes, it is so.
I suggest there were traces of blood on only one cuff, the left one.
Yes, sorry, I made a mistake. It was only the left cuff.
And it was only the left sleeve which had been washed.
Yes, that is so.
Are you aware that the prisoner had told the police that he had cut his wrist and that that blood was on the cuff of that jacket?
So I understand.
I have here a certificate stating that Leonard Vole is a blood donor at the North London Hospital and that his blood group is the blood group O. That is the same blood group, is it not?
Yes.
So the blood might just as easily have come from a cut on the prisoner's wrist.
Yes.
Blood group O is a particularly common one, is that right?
Yes. About 42% of people are in blood group O.
Thank you. Call Romaine Heil.
Calling Romaine Heiger. Silence.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Romaine Heil.
Yes,
You have been living as the wife of prisoner Leonard Vole.
yes.
Are you actually his wife?
I went through a form of marriage with him in Berlin. My former husband is still living, so the marriage is not...
Not valid.
My lord, I have the most serious objection to this witness giving evidence at all. We have the undeniable fact of marriage between this witness and the prisoner and no proof whatsoever of this so-called previous marriage.
If my friend had not abandoned his customary patience and waited for one more question, your lordship would have been spared this further interruption. Mrs. Halger, is this a certificate of marriage between yourself and Otto Goethe Halger on April the 18th, 1946 in Leipzig?
It is.
I should like to see that certificate. This will be exhibit number 4, I think?
I believe it will be, my lord.
Yes. I think Sir Wilfrid, this witness is competent to give evidence.
In any case, Mrs. Halger, are you willing to give evidence against the man you have been calling your husband?
I'm quite willing.
Romaine, what are you doing here? What are you saying?
I must have silence. As your counsel will tell you, Vole, you will shortly have an opportunity of speaking in your own defense.
Mrs. Halger, will you kindly tell us what happened on the evening of the 14th of October?
I was at home all the evening.
And Leonard Vole?
Leonard went out at 7:30.
At what time did he return?
At 10 minutes past 10.
But that's not true! You know that's not true! It was about 9:25 when I came home! Who's been making us say this?
Leonard Vole returned, you say, at 10 minutes past 10. What happened next?
He was breathing hard, very excited. He threw off his coat and examined the sleeves. Then he told me to wash the cuffs. They had blood on them.
Did he speak about the blood?
He said, "Damn it, there's blood on them."
And what did you say?
I said, "What have you done?"
And what did the prisoner answer to that?
He said, "I've killed her."
This is not true! It is not true!
Please control yourself.
Not a word of this is true!
Mrs. Halger, you know what you're saying.
I am to speak the truth, am I not?
The prisoner said, I have killed her. Did you know to whom he referred?
Yes, I knew. It was the old woman he had been going to see so often.
And what happened next?
He told me I was to say he was at home with me all the evening. Especially, he said, I was to say he was at home with me at 9:30. I said, "Do the police know you've killed her?" And he said, "No, they will think it is a burglary. But anyway, remember, I was at home with you at 9:30.
And you were subsequently interrogated by the police.
Yes.
Did they ask you whether Leonard Vole was at home with you at 9:30?
Yes.
And what did you say to that?
I said that he was.
You change your story now. Why?
Because it is murder. I cannot go on lying to save him. I am grateful to him, yes. He married me and brought me to this country. What he has asked me to do, always I have done it. Because I was grateful.
Because you loved him.
No, I never loved him. I never loved him.
You were grateful to him. He brought you to this country. He asked you to give him an alibi, and at first you consented, but later you felt that what he asked you to do was wrong.
Yes, that is it exactly.
Why did you feel it was wrong?
But it is murder. I cannot come into court and lie and say he was there with me at the time it was done. I cannot do it. I cannot do it.
So what did you do?
I did not know what to do. I do not know your country, and I am afraid of the police. So I write a letter to my ambassador, and I say I do not wish to tell any more lies. I wish to speak the truth.
And that is the truth. That Leonard Vole returned that night at 10 minutes past 10. That he had blood on the sleeves of his coat. That he said to you, I have killed her. That is the truth before God.
That is the truth.
When the prisoner went through this form of marriage with you, was he aware that your first husband was still alive?
No.
He acted in good faith.
Yes.
And you were very grateful to him?
I was grateful to him, yes.
You have shown your gratitude by coming here to testify against him?
I have to speak the truth.
Is it the truth?
Yes.
I suggest that on the evening of October the 14th, the prisoner, Leonard Vole, was at home with you at 9:30, the time the murder was committed. I suggest that this whole story of yours is a wicked fabrication, that you have for some reason a grudge against the prisoner, and this is your way of expressing it.
No.
You realize you are on oath.
Yes.
And I must warn you, Mrs. Hyler, that if you care nothing for the prisoner, you should take care on your own account. Penalty for perjury is heavy.
Oh, really, my lord? I don't know if these theatrical outbursts are for the benefit of the jury, but I do most respectfully submit that there is nothing to suggest that this witness has spoken anything but the truth.
Mr. Myers, this is a capital charge, and within the bounds of reason, I should like the defence to have every latitude. So,
Now then, you have said there was blood on both cuffs.
Yes.
Both cuffs.
I have told you that is what Leonard said.
No, Mrs. Hyler, you said he told me to wash the cuffs. They had blood on them.
yes, it's precisely my notes, Sir Wilfrid.
Thank you. So what you were saying is that you had washed both cuffs.
It is my friend's turn to be inaccurate now. Nowhere has this witness said that she washed both cups, or indeed that she washed even one.
No, my learned friend is right. Well, Mrs. Hyler, did you wash the sleeves?
I remember now, it was only one sleeve that I washed.
Thank you. Perhaps your memory as to other parts of your story is equally untrustworthy. I believe your original story to the police was that the prisoner had cut his wrist while carving ham.
I said so, yes, but it was not true.
Now, why did you lie?
I said what Leonard told me to say.
Even going so far as to produce the actual knife with which he was slicing ham?
When Leonard found he had blood on him, he cut himself to make it seem the blood was his.
I never did.
Please, please. So you admit that your original story to the police was all lies. You seem to be a very good liar.
Leonard told me what to say.
The question is whether you were lying then or whether you are lying now. If you were appalled at murder having been committed, you could have told the truth to the police when they first questioned you.
I was afraid of Leonard.
Afraid of Leonard Vole, the man whose heart and spirit you have just broken? I think I know which of you the jury will believe.
Remain hard. I ask you one more time. Is the evidence you have given the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
My lord, that is the case for the prosecution.
Silence. Sir Wilfrid?
My lord. Members of the jury, I will not suggest to you that there is no case for the prisoner to answer, as will I not. There is a case of very strong circumstantial evidence. You have heard the police and other expert witnesses. They have given fair and impartial evidence, as is their duty. Against them I have nothing to say. On the other hand, you have heard Janet Mackenzie and the woman who calls herself Romaine Vole. Can you believe that their testimony is not warped? Janet Mackenzie, cut out of her rich mistress's will, her position usurped, quite unwittingly so, by this unfortunate boy. Romaine Vole, Heilbert, or whatever she calls herself, tricked him into marriage, whilst at the same time concealing from him the fact that she was married already. That woman owes him more than she can possibly repay. She used him to free her from political persecution, yet she admits no love for him. He has served his purpose. I will ask you to be very careful how you believe her testimony. The testimony of a woman who, for all we know, has been brought up to believe the pernicious doctrine that lying is a weapon to achieve one's own ends. Members of the jury, I call the prisoner, Leonard Vole.
Silence. Silence in the court.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Now, Mr. Vole, we have heard of your friendship with Miss Emily French. I want you to tell us how often you visited her.
Frequently.
And why was that?
Well, she was awfully nice to me, and I was very fond of her. She was like my Aunt Betsy.
Well, that was an aunt who brought you up.
Yes. She was a dear. Miss French reminded me of her.
You have heard Janet Mackenzie say that Miss French thought you were a single man, and that there was some question of her marrying you. Is there any truth in this?
No, it's nonsense.
Miss French knew you were married,
Yes.
so there was no question of marriage between you.
Of course not. I told you she treated me as though she was an indulgent aunt, almost like a mother.
And in return, you did everything for her that you could.
I was very fond of her.
Now, I want you to tell the jury exactly what happened in your own words on the night of October the 14th.
Well, I'd come across a kind of crack brush, a new thing in the line, and I thought it would please her. So I took it along that evening, nothing else to do.
What time was that?
Just before 8 I got there. Gave her the cat brush, she was pleased. We tried it out on one of the cats and it was a success. Then we played a game of Double Demon. Miss French was very fond of Double Demon, and after that I left.
Yes, but did you not?
Sir Wilfrid, I don't understand this piece of evidence at all. What is a cat brush?
It's a brush for brushing cats.
Oh, yes, of course it is.
A kind of brush and comb combined. Miss French kept cats. 8 of them she had, and the house smelt a bit.
Yes.
I thought the brush might be useful.
Did you see Janet Mackenzie?
No, Miss French let me in herself.
Did you know Janet Mackenzie was out?
I didn't really think about it.
What time did you leave?
Just before 9, I walked home.
How long did that?
I should say 20 minutes, half an hour.
So did you reach home?
I reached home at 25 minutes past 9.
And your wife, I shall call your wife, was at home then?
Of course she wasn't. I think she must have gone mad.
Yes. Never mind that now. Just go on with your story. Did you wash your coat when you got in?
No, of course I didn't.
Who did wash it?
Remained it. The next day she said it got blood on it from the cut of my wrist.
A cut on your wrist?
Yes, here. You can still see the mark.
When did you first hear of the murder?
I read about it in the evening paper the next day. The paper said it had been a burglary, and I never dreamt of anything else.
What did you feel?
I could hardly believe it. I was very upset.
What happened next?
Well, the paper said the police were anxious to interview me, so I went along to the police station.
You went along to the police station and you made a statement.
Yes.
You were not nervous? Reluctant to do so?
No, of course not. I wanted to help in any way possible.
Have you any money ever received from Miss French?
No.
Were you aware that Miss French had made a will in your favour?
said she was going to ring her lawyers once to make a new will. I asked her if she often made new wills, and she said, from time to time.
Did you know what the terms of this new will were to be?
No, I swear I didn't.
Had she ever suggested to you that she might leave you anything at all in her will?
No.
Now you have heard the evidence your wife, or the woman whom you considered your wife, has given in court.
Yes. I heard. I can't understand.
Now, I understand, Mr. Vole, that you are very upset. But I want to ask you to put aside all emotion and answer this question plainly and simply. Was what that witness said true or untrue?
No, of course it wasn't true.
You arrived home at 9:25 that night and had supper with your wife.
Yes.
Did you go out?
No.
Are you right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Now, Mr. Vole, I'm going to ask you one last question. Did you kill Emily French?
No, I did not.
Have you ever tried to get money out of anyone?
No.
How soon in your acquaintance with Miss French did you learn that she was a very wealthy lady?
Well, I didn't know she was rich when I first went to see her.
But having gained that knowledge, you decided to cultivate her acquaintance further.
Well, I suppose that's what it looked like, but I really liked her, you know, but money had nothing to do with it.
You would have continued to visit her no matter how poor she had been.
Yes, I would.
You yourself are in poor circumstances?
You know I am.
Can we answer the question, yes or no?
You must answer the question, yes or no.
Yes.
What salary do you earn?
Oh, as a matter of fact, I haven't got a job at the moment. I haven't had one for some time.
You were recently discharged from your position.
No, I wasn't. Quit.
At the time of your arrest, how much money had you in the bank?
Well, actually only a few pounds. I was expecting some money in a week or two.
How much?
Well, not very much.
I put it to you that you were pretty desperate for money.
Desperate? I was a bit worried.
You were worried about money. You met a very wealthy lady and you courted her acquaintance assiduously.
You make it sound all twisted. I tell you, I liked her.
We have heard that Miss French used to consult you on her income tax returns.
Yes, you know what those forms are like. You can't make head and tail of them, or she couldn't.
Janet Mackenzie told us that Miss French was a very good businesswoman, well able to deal with her own affairs.
It's not what she told me. She said those forms worried her terribly.
In filling up her income tax forms for her, you no doubt learned the exact amount of her income.
No?
No?
Well, I mean, naturally, yes.
Yes! Very convenient. How was it, Mr. Vole, that you never took your wife with you to see Miss French?
I don't know. It just didn't seem to crop up.
You say Miss French knew you were married?
Yes.
And she never asked you to bring your wife with you to the house?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. She didn't like women, I don't think.
She preferred, shall we say, personal young men. And you never insisted on taking your wife with you?
No, of course I didn't. She knew my wife was a foreigner. Well, she seemed to think we didn't get on.
That was the impression you gave her.
No, I didn't. I think it was wistful thinking on her.
Ah, you mean she was infatuated with you?
No, she wasn't infatuated. It's like mothers are sometimes with their son.
Huh?
They don't want him to like a girl or get engaged or anything of that sort.
You hoped, didn't you, Mr. Vole, for some monetary advantage from your friendship with Miss French?
Not in the way you mean.
Not in the way I mean. You seem to know what I mean better than I know myself. In what way, then, did you hope for monetary advantage? I repeat, in what way did you hope for monetary advantage?
There's a thing I'd invented. A really good idea it was. It's a windscreen wiper that works in snow. I was looking for somebody to finance that, and I thought perhaps Miss French would, but that wasn't the only reason I went to see her. I tell you, I liked her.
Oh, yes, we've heard that often enough, haven't we? How much you liked her.
Well, it's true.
I believe, Mr. Vole, that about a week before Miss French's death, you were making inquiries of a travel agency about particulars of foreign cruises.
Supposing I did it. It isn't a crime, is it?
No, not at all. Many people go for cruises when they can pay for it. But you couldn't pay for it, could you, Mr. Vole?
I was hard up. I've already told you.
And yet, you went to this particular travel agency with a blonde. A strawberry blonde, I understand.
Strawberry blonde, Mr. Mark?
Oh, it is the term for a lady with reddish fair hair, my lord.
I thought I knew all about blonde.
St. Albury blood, eh? Oh, yes, yes. Mr. Martin.
Well, my wife isn't blonde, and it's only a bit of fun anyway.
You admit asking for particulars, not of cheap trips, but of the most expensive and luxurious cruises. How did you expect to pay for such a thing?
I didn't.
I suggest that you knew that in a week's time you would inherit a large sum of money from a trusting elderly lady.
I didn't know anything. I was feeling fed up, and there were posters in the window, all coconuts and palm trees and blue seas, and so I went in and asked. Clark gave me a sort of supercilious look. I was a bit shabby, but it riled me. So I began to put on a bit of an act. And I began asking for the swankiest tours they were, or deluxe and a cabin and a boat deck.
You really expect the jury to believe that?
I don't expect anybody to believe anything, but that's the way it was. It was make-believe and childish, if you like, but it was fun, and I enjoyed it. I wasn't thinking of killing anybody or inheriting any money.
So it was just a remarkable coincidence that Miss French should be killed, leaving you her heir only a few days later.
I tell you, I didn't kill her!
Your story is that on the night of the 14th of October, you left Miss French's house at 4 minutes to 9. You walked home and arrived at 25 past 9, and you stayed there for the rest of the evening.
Yes.
You have heard the woman, Romaine Halger, rebut that story in court. You have heard her say that you arrived not at 25 minutes past 9, but at 10 minutes past 10.
But it's not true.
That you had blood on the sleeve of your coat, and you definitely admitted to her that you had killed Miss French.
It's not true. Not one word of this is true.
Can you suggest any reason why this young woman, who has been passing as your wife, should deliberately give the evidence she has given if it were not true?
No, I can't. That's the awful thing. There's no reason at all. I think she must have gone mad.
Oh, you think she must have gone mad? She seemed extremely sane and well possessed, but insanity is the only reason you can suggest.
I don't understand it. God, what's happened?
Oh, very effective, I'm sure. But in this court we deal with facts, and the fact is, Mr. Vole, that we have only your word for it that you left Miss French's house when you say you did, that you arrived home at 5 and 20 minutes past 9, and you did not go out again.
But somebody must have seen me in the street or going into the house.
One would certainly think so. But the only person who did see you that night say you came in at 10 minutes past 10 and that you had blood on the sleeves of your coat.
I cut my wrist.
A very easy thing to do should any questions arise.
You twist everything. You twist everything.
You cut your wrist deliberately.
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything.
You arrived home at 10 minutes past 10.
No, I didn't. You've got to believe.
You killed Emily French.
No, I didn't. I've never killed anybody. Oh, God, this is a nightmare. It's some awful, evil dream.
Oh, that damned woman. I scented trouble the first time I met her. I knew she was up to something, a thoroughly vindictive piece of goods. And much too deep for that poor young fool in the dock. But what's her game, eh? What's she up to, John? Tell me that.
Presumably, it would seem to get young Leonard Vole convicted of murder.
Yes, but why? Look at what he's done for her.
Oh, he's probably done too much for her.
And she despises him for it. Yes, that's more than likely. Ungrateful beasts, women. But why be vindictive? I mean, after all, if she were bored with him, why wouldn't she just walk out? There seems to be no financial reason whatsoever for her to remain with him.
I brought you your tea, Sir Wilfrid, and a cup for Mr. Mayhew too.
Tea? Strong drink is what we need.
Oh, you know you like your tea really, sir. How did it go today?
Badly.
Oh, no, sir. Oh, I do hope not. Because he didn't do it. I'm sure he didn't do it.
I'm still sure he didn't do it. Now, why is that?
Because he's not the sort. He's nice, if you know what I mean. Ever so nice. He'd never go coshing an old lady on the head. But you'll get him off, won't you, sir?
Oh, yes. I'll get him off. God knows how. Only one woman on the jury. More's the pity. Evidently the women like him. I can't think why. He's not particularly good looking. Perhaps he has something that arouses the maternal instinct. Women want to mother him.
Whereas Mrs. Heilger is not the maternal type.
Oh, no. She's the passionate sort. Hot-blooded behind that cool self-control. Now, she's the sort who'd knife a man if he double-crossed her. God, how I'd like to break her down. Show up her lies. Show her up for what she is.
Forgive me, Wilfrid, aren't you letting this become a personal duel between you and her?
Am I? No. Well, perhaps I am. But she's an evil woman, John. I'm convinced of that. And a young man's life depends on the outcome of that duel.
I don't think the jury liked her.
No, you're right there. I don't think they did. Now, first off, she's a foreigner. And they distrust foreigners. Then, she isn't married to the fellow. She's more or less admitted to committing bigamy. None of that goes down well, and in the end, she isn't sticking to her man when he's down. We don't like that in this country.
That's all to the good.
Yes, but it isn't enough. There's absolutely no corroboration of his statement whatsoever. He admits to being with Miss French that night. His fingerprints are all over the place. We haven't managed to find anyone who saw him coming home. And then there's the altogether damning matter of the will. That travel agency business doesn't help either. The woman makes a will in his favour, and he immediately goes inquiring after luxury cruises. Couldn't be more unfortunate.
I agree, and his explanation was hardly convincing.
And yet, you know, John, my wife does it.
Does what?
She gets travel agents to make out itineraries for extensive foreign tours for both of us. She'll plan it all out to the last detail. Bemoan the fact that the boat misses a connection in Bermuda. She'll say, oh, we could fly to save time, then we shouldn't see anything of the country. And what do I think? And I say, oh, it's all the same to me, my dear. You arrange it as you wish. You both know it's a kind of game. We'll end up with the same old thing, staying at home.
Now, with my wife, it's houses.
Houses?
Orders to view. Sometimes I think there's hardly a house that's ever been up for sale in England that my wife hasn't been over. She plans how to apportion the rooms and work out any structural alterations that are necessary. She even plans the covers and the curtains and the general colour scheme.
Oh, well, the fantasies of our wives aren't evidence. More's the pity. But it certainly helps one to understand why young Vaux went asking for clues literature.
Pipe dreams. Thank you, Wilfrid.
There you are, John. I think we had a certain amount of luck with Janet Mackenzie.
Bias, you mean?
Yes, that's right, overdoing her prejudice.
There's a very telling point of yours about her deafness.
Yes, we got her there. She got her own back over the wireless. Not smoking, John?
No, not now.
John, what really happened that night? Was it robbery with violence after all? The police certainly seem to think it. They have to admit that it might have been.
No, the police don't really think it is, and they don't often make a mistake like that. That inspector really is quite convinced that it's an inside job, that the window was tampered with from the inside.
Well, he may be wrong.
Oh, I wonder.
If so, who was the man Janet Mackenzie heard talking to his French at 9:30? Seems to me there are two answers to that.
The answers being
One, that she made the whole thing up when she realized the police weren't satisfied about it being a burglary.
Surely she wouldn't do a thing like that.
Well, what did she hear then? Don't tell me it was a burglar chatting amicably with Miss French before he crushed her on the head, you old clown.
It certainly seems unlikely.
I don't think that rather grim old woman would stick at making up a thing like that. I don't think she'd stick at anything, you know. No, I don't think she'd stick at anything.
Oh, good Lord, you don't mean to say...
Yes, Miss Carter.
Excuse me, Sir Wilfrid. There's a young lady asking to see you. She says it has to do with the case of Mr. Leonard Vole.
Mental?
Oh no, sir. I can always tell that sort.
What sort of a young woman?
Rather a common young woman, sir, with a very free way of talking.
What does she want?
She says that she knows something that might do the prisoner a bit of good.
Highly unlikely, bring her in.
Yes, sir.
What do you think, John?
We can't afford to leave any stone unturned.
The young lady.
Here, what's this? Two of you. I'm not talking to two
This
of you.
is Mr. Mayhew. He is Mr. Vole's solicitor, and I am Sir Wilfrid Robarts, counsel for the defence.
Ah, so you are, dear. I didn't recognise you without your wig. Lovely all looking them wigs. Having a bit of a confab, are you? Well, maybe I can help you. If you make it worth my while.
You know, Miss...
No need for names. If I did give you a name, it mightn't be the right one, might it?
Just as you please. You realise you are in duty bound to come forward to give any evidence that you may have in your possession.
Now come off it. I didn't say I knew anything, did I? I've got something. That's more to the point.
What is it you have got, madam?
I was in court today. I watched that trollop give her evidence. So I am mighty about it too. She's a wicked one, a Jezebel, that's what she is.
Quite so. But as to this special information you have?
But what's in it for me? It's valuable, what I've got. 100 quid. That's what I want.
I'm afraid we cannot countenance anything of that character, but perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what it is you have to offer.
You don't buy unless you get a butcher's, is that it?
A butcher's?
A butcher's hook. And look,
Oh, yes. Yes.
I've got the goods on her, all right. It's letters, that's what it is. Letters.
Letters written by Romain Vole to the prisoner.
To the prisoner? Don't make me laugh, poor ruddy prisoner. He's been took in by her, all right. Now I've got something to sell, dear, and don't you forget it.
Perhaps if you can let us have a little look, we'll be able to advise you as to how pertinent they are.
Putting it in your own language, aren't you? Well, as I say, I don't expect you to buy it without seeing. But there's there. If these letters do the trick, if they'll get the boy off and put that foreign bitch where she belongs, well, it's 100 quid for me.
If
Right.
those letters contain information that is useful to defence in helping cover your expenses here today, I'm prepared to offer you, shall we say, £10?
10 bloody quid for letters like these? You think again?
If you have a letter there, which might help to prove my client's innocence, I think £20 would be not an unreasonable sum for your expenses.
50 quid, and it's a bargain. That's if you're satisfied with the letters.
£20.
All right, last year, here, taken quite a packet of them. The top one is the one will do the trick.
Just a moment. I suppose this is her handwriting.
Yes, it's her handwriting, all right. She wrote to him, it's all fair and square.
We have only your word for that.
Just a moment. I have a letter of Mrs. Vole's, not here, at my office.
Well, madam, it seems we shall have to trust you. For now. It's incredible. It's quite incredible.
The cold-blooded vindictiveness.
Where did you get hold of these?
That'd be telling.
What have you got against Romain Vole?
You see that?
Did she do that?
Not her. The chap I was going with. Going with him steady I was too. He was a bit younger than me, but he was fond of me and I loved him. Then she came along. She took a fancy to him and she got him away from me. She started seeing him on the sly, and then one day he cleared out. I knew where he'd gone. I went after him and I found them together. I told her what I thought of her and he set on me. He was one of the razor gangs he was. He cut my face up proper. There, he says, no man will ever look at you now.
You go to the police about it?
Me? Not likely. Besides, it wasn't his fault, not really. It was hers, all hers. Getting him away from me, turning him against me, but I waited my time. I followed her about and I watched her. I know some of the things she's been up to. I know where the bloke lives who she goes to see on the sly sometimes. That is how I got hold of them letters. So, now you know the whole story, mister. You want to kiss me? I don't blame you.
I'm deeply sorry. Deeply sorry. What a fire, John. We'll make it another £5.
Holding out on me, were you? Willing to go up another £5? I knew I was being too soft with you. Those letters are the goods, aren't they?
They will, I think, prove most useful. Here, John, ever butchers at this one.
We'll have a handwriting expert to look over him for safety's sake, and then they can give evidence if necessary.
We shall require this man's surname and his address.
Hello? Where's she gone? Oh, we mustn't let her leave without giving us further particulars.
Miss Carter! Miss Carter!
Yes, Sir Wilfred?
Carter, where did that young woman go?
She went straight out, sir.
Well, you shouldn't have let her. Send Greta after her.
Very good, sir.
She's gone? Yes. I've sent Greta after her, but we haven't a hope in this fog. Damn it! We must have this man's surname and his address.
Oh, we won't get them. She was too careful. Wouldn't give us a name and then slipped out like an eel as soon as she saw us busy with the letters. She doesn't want to bring the man into it. Look what he did to her the last time.
She'd have protection.
Oh, would she? For how long? He'd get her in the end, or his pals would. She daren't risk having to appear in open court. She doesn't want to bring the man into it. It's Romaine Hilder she's after.
And what a beauty our Romaine is. Still, at last we have something to go on. Now, to procedure.
persons who have anything further to do before my lord, the King's Justices of Oyer and Termina, and General Jail Delivery for the jurisdiction of the Central Criminal Court, draw near and give your attendance. God save the King.
My lord, since this was adjourned, evidence of a rather startling character has come into my hands. Such is this evidence that I am going to ask your lordship's opinion to recall the last witness for the prosecution, Romain Hyland.
When exactly, Sir Wilfrid, did this evidence come to your knowledge?
It was brought to me after this court was adjourned last night.
My lord, I must object to my learned friend's request. The case for the prosecution is closed.
Mr. Myers, I had not intended to rule on this question before first observing the customary formality of asking for your observations on the matter. Yes, Sir Wilfrid.
My lord, when evidence vital to the prisoner comes into the hands of his legal representatives at any time before the jury has returned their verdict, I contend that not only is such evidence admissible, it is also desirable. Happily, there is clear authority to support my proposition to be found in the case of the Crown against Stillman, reported in 1926, Appeal Cases, page 463.
You needn't bother to cite the authority, Sir Wilfrid. I'm quite familiar with it. I should like to hear the prosecution. Now, Mr. Myers.
In my respectful submission, my lord, the course my learned friend proposes is, save in exceptional circumstances, quite unprecedented. And what, may I ask, is this startling new evidence of which Sir Wilfrid speaks?
Letters, my lord. Letters from Romain Hyland.
I should like to see these letters to which you refer, Sir Wilfrid.
My friend was good enough to tell me only as we came to court that he intended to make this submission, so I have not had the opportunity to examine the authorities, but I seem to remember a case similar in 1930, I think. The King against Porter, I believe?
No, Mr. Myers, it was the King against Potter. It was reported in 1931. I appeared for the prosecution.
And if my memory serves me well, your lordship's similar objection was sustained.
For once, your memory serves you ill, Mr. Myers. For my objection then was overruled by Mr. Justice Swindon, as yours is now. These letters are authentic. They've been very serious issues.
Call Romain Hyland.
Calling Romain Hyland.
Mrs. Hyland, you appreciate you are still on your oath?
Yes.
Romain Hyland, you have been recalled to this box, so Sir Wilfrid may ask you further questions.
Mrs. Hyland, do you know a certain man whose Christian name is Max?
I don't know what you mean.
Yet it is a very simple question. Do you, or do you not, know a man called Max?
Certainly not.
You're quite sure.
I have never known anyone called Max. Never.
And yet it is a very common Christian name, or contraction of a name, in your country. You mean you have never known anyone of that name?
Oh, in Germany, yes. Perhaps. I do not remember. It is a long time ago.
Oh, I shan't ask you to throw your mind back as far as all that. A few weeks will suffice to, shall we say, the 17th of October last.
What have you got there?
A letter.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about a letter. A letter written on October the 17th. You remember that date, perhaps?
Not particularly. Why?
I suggest that on that date, you wrote a certain letter. A letter addressed to a man called Max.
I did nothing of the kind. These are lies you are telling. I don't know what you mean.
This letter is one of a series of letters written over a considerable period of time to the same man.
Lies, all lies.
You seem to have been on intimate terms with this man.
Dare you say a thing like that?
The prisoner, in his own interest, will remain silent.
It isn't true.
I'm not concerned with the general trend of this correspondence. I'm only interested in one particular letter. My beloved Max, an extraordinary thing has happened. I believe all our difficulties may be ended.
It's a lie! I never wrote it! How did you get hold of that letter? Who gave it to you?
How it came into my possession is irrelevant.
You stole it! You are a thief as well as a liar! Or did some woman give it to you?
Can
Yes,
you
I
confine
am
yourself to
right.
answering
But I will
counsel's
not
questions?
listen!
Proceed.
So far, you have only heard the opening phrases of the letter. Am I to understand that you definitely deny writing?
Of course I never wrote it. It is a forgery. It is an outrage that I should be forced to listen to a pack of lies. Lies made up by a jealous woman.
I suggest that it is you who have lied. You have lied flagrantly and persistently in this court and on oath. And the reason you have lied is made clear by this letter, written down by you in black and white.
You are crazy. Why should I write down a lot of nonsense?
Because a way to freedom had opened before you. And in planning to take that way, the fact that an innocent man would be sent to his death meant nothing to you. You have even included the final deadly touch of how you yourself managed accidentally to wound Leonard Vole with a hand knife.
I never wrote that. I wrote he did it himself, cutting the hand.
So you know what is in the letter before I have read it.
Damn you! Damn you! Damn you!
Leave her alone. You're
Let me get out of here! Let me go!
Usher, give the witness a chair. Sir Wilfrid, would you read that letter aloud so the jury may hear the rest of its contents?
My beloved Max, an extraordinary thing has happened. I believe all our difficulties may be ended. I can come to you without any fear of endangering the valuable work you are doing in this country. The old lady I told you about has been murdered, and I think Leonard is suspected. He was there earlier that night, and his fingerprints will be all over the place. 9:30 seems to be the time. Leonard was home by then. But his alibi depends on me. On me. Supposing I say he came home much later, and that he had blood on his clothes. He did have blood on his sleeve, because he cut his wrist at supper. So you see, it would all fit in. I can even say he told me he killed her. Oh, Max, beloved, tell me I can go ahead. It would be so wonderful to be free from playing the part of a loving, grateful wife. I know the cause and the party comes first, but if Leonard was convicted of murder, I could come to you safely and we could be together for always. Your adoring Romaine.
Romaine Howder, will you go back into the witness box? You have heard that letter read. What have you to say?
Nothing.
Romaine, tell me you didn't write it. I know you.
Of course I wrote it.
That, my lord, concludes the case for the defense.
Sir Wilfrid, do you have any evidence as to whom these letters were addressed?
They came into my possession anonymously, my lord, and as yet there has been no time to ascertain any further facts. It would be probable that he entered the country illegally and is engaged in some subversive operations.
You will never find out who he is, never. I don't care what you do to me. You will never know.
Do you wish to re-examine Mr. Miles?
Really, my lord, I find it somewhat difficult given these startling new developments. Mrs. Howler, you are, I think, of a highly nervous temperament. Being a foreigner, you may not quite realise the responsibilities that lie upon a person when they take an oath in an English court of law. If you have been intimidated into admitting something that is not true, if you wrote a letter under duress, or in some spirit of make-believe, do not hesitate to say so now.
Must you go on and on torturing me? I wrote the letter. Now let me go.
Submit that this witness is in such a state of agitation that she hardly knows what she is saying or admitting.
You may remember, Mr. Myers, that Sir Wilfrid, at the time of the witness's previous statement, impressed upon her the sacred nature of the oath she had taken. Mrs. Hylder, I wish to warn you that this will not be the end of this matter. In this country, one cannot commit perjury and not be brought to account for it. I may tell you that proceedings for perjury will shortly be taken against you. The sentence for perjury can be severe. You may step down. Sir Wilfrid, would you now sum up for the jury, for the defense?
Members of the jury, when the truth is clearly evident, it speaks for itself. No words of mine can, I am sure, add to the impression made upon you by the straightforward story told by the prisoner, nor by the very wicked attempt to incriminate him, evidence of which you have just witnessed.
All stand up. Members of the jury, are you all agreed upon your verdict?
We are.
Do you find the prisoner, Leonard Vole, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Silence.
Leonard Vole, you have been found not guilty of the murder of Emily French on October 14th. You are hereby discharged and free to leave the court.
All persons who have anything further to do before my lord, the King's Justices of Oyer and Termina and General Jail Delivery for the jurisdiction of the Central Criminal Court may depart hence and give your attendance here again tomorrow morning, 10:30 o'clock. God save the King.
Congratulations. Congratulations, my boy.
I can't thank you enough.
This is the man you've got to thank.
Thank you, sir. You got me out of a rather nasty mess.
A nasty mess? Do you hear that, John? Your troubles are over now, my boy.
But it was a near thing, you know.
Yes, I suppose it was.
Yes, if we hadn't been able to break that woman down.
Yes, did you have to go through the way you did it? It was terrible the way she went to pieces.
Now listen to me, Vole. You're not the first young man I've known who's been so crazy over a woman, he's been blinded to what she's actually like. That woman did her level best to put a rope around your neck.
And don't you forget it.
Yes, but why? I can't see why. She always seemed so devoted. I could have sworn she loved me. All this time she's been seeing this other fellow. It's unbelievable. And yet, there's something there I don't understand.
Just 2 or 3 minutes more, sir. We'll slip you out to a car by the side entrance. I think you'd better wait in here, madam.
Thank you.
Yes, the crowd's in a bit of a nasty mood. I'd let them disperse before you try to leave.
No, you don't.
Are you protecting Leonard from me? Really, there's no need.
You've done enough harm.
Mayn't I even congratulate him on being free?
No thanks to you.
And rich.
Yes, Mr. Vole, I think now you stand to inherit a great deal of money.
Money doesn't seem to mean so much to me after what I've been. Remain.
Leonard, I can explain.
No.
Tell me, do those words the judge said mean that I shall go to prison?
You will certainly be charged with perjury and tried for it. Yes, you'll probably go to prison.
It'll be all right, honey. Don't worry.
Well, you never see sense, Vole. Now, this is a matter of probate.
It may interest you to know that I took your measure the first time we met. I made up my mind to beat you at your own little game, and by God, I've done it. I've got him off in spite of you.
In spite of me?
You don't deny, do you, that you did your best to hang him?
Tell me, would they have believed me if I had said he was at home with me all that night and did not go out? Would they?
Why not?
Because they would have said to themselves, this woman loves this man. She would say or do anything for him. They would have had sympathy with me, yes, but they would not have believed me.
If you'd been speaking the truth, they would.
I wonder. I did not want their sympathy. I wanted them to dislike me, to mistrust me, to be convinced that I was a liar. And then, when all my lies were broken down, then they believed. So now you know the whole story, mister. Like to kiss me?
My God!
Yes, the woman with the letters. I wrote those letters. I brought them to you. I was that woman. It wasn't you who won freedom for Leonard. It was I. And because of it, I shall go to prison. But at the end of it all, Leonard and I will be together again. Happy, loving each other.
But my dear, Couldn't you trust me? We believe you know that our British system of justice upholds the truth. We would have got him off.
I couldn't risk it. You see, you thought he was innocent.
And you knew he was innocent. I understand.
But you don't understand at all. I knew he was guilty.
Aren't you afraid?
Afraid?
Of linking your life with a murderess?
You don't understand. We love each other.
First time I met you, I said I thought you were a very remarkable woman. I see no reason to change my opinion.
Oh, darling, you're free. Oh, isn't it wonderful? They're trying to keep me out. Darling, it's been awful. I've been nearly crazy.
Leonard, who is this girl?
I'm Len's girl. I know all about you. You're not his wife. You never have been. You're years older than him, and you just got hold of him, and you've done your best to hang him. But darling, it's all over now. We'll go abroad, like you said, on one of those cruises to all those grand places and have a wonderful time.
Is this true, Leonard? Is she your girl?
Yes. She is.
After all I've done for you, what can she do that can compare with that?
She's 15 years younger than you are. I've got the money. I've been acquitted. And I can't be tried again. So don't go shooting off your mouth or you'll get yourself hanged as an accessory after the fact.
No. That will not happen. I shall not be tried as an accessory after the fact. I shall not be tried for perjury. I shall be tried for murder!